Welcome to Buckets, coming to you from the Tommy John Home Studios. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Brian Fonseca on Twitter and on YouTube at Brian Fonseca NY. Sorry, his YouTube is just Brian Fonseca. He's on Twitter in the Action Network app at Brian Fonseca NY. Joe Delara is in the Action Network app at Joe Delara. Brian filling in for Jim Turvey this week, who is picking mushrooms in the fields of Vermont.
It's probably not that far off.
That's
Maybe.
what he does now.
Maybe he's doing them.
No, I think he's at Unrivaled.
He's wearing a denim jacket while he paints a barn. That's what he's doing
With a corduroy collar.
With a corduroy collar. Yes,
Yeah.
That's accurate. And finding more ways to bet the Hawks for some reason. We appreciate Brian for filling in for us this week. Today we're going to talk about the New York Knicks, New York Knickerbockers, because anytime that I have a chance to snatch the soul from Joe Delara on a recorded podcast, I have to take advantage of it. We will also talk about Defensive Player of the Year. We'll give you best bets, and everything that we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. Best way for you to track your picks. You get up the second information where the money line and money and movement, where all that's coming in, bets and money are coming in on. Doing a lot more pick analysis in the app, so you can expect those from these games as well as whatever else I play and the other guys play. We're doing a lot more of that in the app, so make sure to be on the lookout for that as well. And also check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/the Action Network. You're going to find stuff on there you want to watch. I promise. Just go searching through it. You're going to find cool videos about stuff to bet. March Madness is right around the corner. You're going to want to go check out BBOC to catch that as well. All right, let's start here, guys. So we didn't do an emergency pod after Victor Wembanyama went out, because pretty much I don't ever really, like, every emergency pod is going to feel like a letdown after the Luka one. It's a real bummer. It sucks that Victor got this blood clot issue. There's been, like, everyone's going to be worried about it. We'll pretty much be worried about it until he's back on the court again. That's kind of how it goes with the blood clots, because it's such a serious thing and there will be concerns about it. There's also no real way to know if it's like, well, what's really good? Is it okay? Like, what's really going on? No one's going to know. It's the San Antonio Spurs. You have a better chance of finding out what's in Area 51 than finding out the actual situation with Victor Wembanyama and his future in basketball. Wish Victor the best. Hope that he's going to be okay. He's absolutely phenomenal. I am choosing to be optimistic. He's going to be fine and get back. However, the market dramatically shifts then to Defensive Player of the Year. And the new favorite is Jaren Jackson Jr., who moved after the news from plus 3,000, 30-1, to minus 120 is where he sets a bet MGM. You can catch a minus 105 at Caesars. Evan Mobley's right behind him. There's a plus 150 for him at DraftKings. Lou Dort is third. There's a plus 1,100 at Caesars. Dyson Daniels is fourth at 18-1, 25-1, I'm sorry, at Bet Rivers. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is second in steals, is 40-1 at Caesars Sportsbook, and on down the line. Brian, when we try and handicap this market now that it's radically shifted, what is your inclination, and how do you think that this winds up over the last 2 months of the season?
This feels like a 2-man race, even though I feel like it should be a 3-man race. I just think that defensive metrics don't do a good enough job for the voters in terms of capturing what depoy-worthy perimeter defense looks like. This is why, like, Matt and I, for example, felt like Jalen Suggs had a real case last year, whereas a lot of people didn't, and the votes demonstrated that. It's a reason why over the last 20 plus years we've barely had anybody, who's a non-big win the award. Kawhi Leonard a couple times, Marcus Smart once, which has not aged well historically. And honestly, it looked like Robert Williams was going to win the award until he, tore his meniscus toward the end of that season. But it felt like it was going to be a Celtic. But this year, Lou Dort, to me, I'm not sure if he's worth a sprinkle from the standpoint of, like, he could actually win the award, because I think so, because I struggle to get to where are the voters going to be voting for Lou Dort. Like, if you're going to show the voters in a very simplistic way, like, hey, what are the numbers that Lou Dort has that show that he's Defensive Player of the Year and the voters are going to buy into it? Because the easiest thing to do is just look at the impact metrics that a big has. And guys look at defensive rating, even though it's not the most perfect stat. Those tend to favor, and those type of metrics tend to favor bigs. They just do all the time. Like this happened with Rudy Gobert. This happens with Jaren Jackson Jr. now. This is happening with Evan Mobley. And it's not to say that these guys aren't great defenders. They are. And I think Jaren Jackson Jr. and Evan Mobley should probably be the top two right now. But I think, like, I guess my question would be, what is the best way to capture Lou Dort's impact defensively without just being like, hey, this is what happens when he guards this person one-on-one, this person one-on-one, this person one-on-one? Because I don't think in 2025 people are going to vote that way.
Okay. I've got my own thoughts, but I want to hear from Joe. Joe, when you look at this board, how do you kind of handicap it?
So I like when we had the catch up pod, I kind of talked about some of my concerns with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Evan Mobley, just based on like the historical precedent of them, of really neither team having like a top 3 defense, for example. I think that they're both obviously very, very good defenders, but I do think that it's a little bit more like open, or so to speak, than other awards. I think that like the natural inclination with the market and with people's thought process was, well, the 2 closest players are Jaren and Evan Mobley. But when we had this conversation with in regards to MVP, Matt, you, I, and Jim, part of it was like, all right, well, we don't think that anybody besides Jokic could catch SGA, right? We didn't feel like anybody else could get into that conversation. But similarly to here, where like if Shea, for some reason, if Shea got hurt or something, then it opens up the field a lot more. And I think that's kind of what we have here in the Defensive Player of the Year award race, where Wemby was such a big favorite that people like they were like, we're going to make somebody the favorite. Like, we don't want to have this be a situation where we're going to get murdered, or we're going to take a killing on some of these. So I think that the preseason priors and some of the preseason bets that were fading Wemby were a lot of on Jaren or on Evan Mobley. And that's why we're seeing the odds kind of where they are. I think that there's an opportunity here for like narratives to kind of swing where, you know, there were some issues with, and Jaren, I think he deserved his DPOI, but at the same time, the aftershocks of that were, well, like, did we give it a little bit prematurely? Like, was it really that good? Like, we don't really know, right? So I'm a little bit worried about that. And then even with Mobley, I think it's hard to say that it's all Mobley on the Cavs. Like, Jared Allen's really good, I think, defensively. Now you're going to add in, like, I think DeAndre Hunter's maybe a little bit overrated as a defender, but I think you're adding him in. It's another good defender, right? I think that you can look a little bit further down the board. Oklahoma City has a historically good defense. I don't think that Shea is the best defensive option that you can bet on this team. I think that Dort is really good. I think like some of the points that you made, Brian, but I think the number that stood out to me, and I bet it, and I logged in the Action app a couple of days ago, was Jalen Williams was as high as 70-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year. And I think that his impact and like his role is super, super important for what Oklahoma City does. You get Chet back, right? Now this is a healthy team. Their defensive numbers could get so outrageous that it starts to skew some of the advanced stats, and you go, we got to get, like, somebody on this team has to get it. And it goes that way, maybe. So I thought about that. And then looking at, you know, defensive EPM on dunks and threes, really one of the highest rated guys. And if you look at the second best defense in the NBA, it's the Clippers, and Zubac is right there. And he was 75-1. So I think that number has since come down, because we, like, again, it logged it in the app a couple days ago when it was 75-1, but we're seeing some 40-1, some 50-1 still. I'm not saying that these guys are going to win, but I think that I want to have a ticket on some of those spots, because I think that they're too long, given what the team's success has been for both the Clippers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, but really the Thunder a little bit more in particular.
Okay. Couple things. So, I've talked about this a lot, that when I ask voters, and I need to kind of ask a few more this, of what's the first thing that you look at when you look at DPOI? The answer I got was, are you, like, your team defense? Are you an elite defense? You need to contribute to an elite defense. Think of it as that's like your record in MVP, right? Should be net rating. Don't get me started. But that's like the direct correlation here. Is that for MVP, it's like, look, it's great for you to put up numbers. It's got to lead to winning. For defense, you can put up numbers. It's got to lead to great defense. And voters, there's two arguments. One is that they don't want to do the deep dive research. The other is that the lineup stuff and on-off is so messy, you don't want to mess with it. You can make either argument, I think, pretty capably. But what they will do is they'll just be like, who's the best defender on an elite defense? Okay, so if we do that, schedule adjusted. OKC is the 5th best defense of all time adjusted for era. If we adjust for era, this is the 5th best defense of all time.
Yeah.
Pretty good. They're also better than everybody else by 3.5 points per 100 possessions, schedule adjusted. I just can't really overemphasize this enough. That it's not like, oh yeah, OKC is the best defense in the league amongst a lot of teams. No, OKC is the best defense in a tier of their own. And then there is a goddamn galaxy.
Yeah.
And then you can find everybody else.
Yeah.
Clippers are Magic are second. No viable candidate there. Suggs has been out for most of the year.
Yeah.
Wendell Carter Jr. has been good, but not great. There's nobody you can point to. Clippers, Zoo is a really fun bet, and I think that he actually deserves a lot more credit. He's also he's 7th in, I looked at rebounds plus blocks plus steals. Reb stocks is what I'm calling them. And he's 7th in Reb stocks. So Zoo's got like a really good case. That's a tasty CLV sandwich that you got, Joe. No one's going to
Oh, yeah. That's like a portfolio piece. If it gets down to the end and he's like in the top 3, I'm like, great. I can go leverage this somewhere else.
Yeah. But nobody's going to vote for him. Not going to happen.
No.
It should actually probably be Chris Dunn. Like, it should be Chris Dunn. I think Chris Dunn.
He's not getting any votes.
Now we're
He's not getting anything.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. But it should be Chris Dunn.
Yeah.
It just should be. He's been the best perimeter defender in the NBA this season.
Yes.
Drives me nuts. This is so
Yes.
dumb. Like, Norman Powell's is in vie for most improved player because he's putting up points on a bad offense. Make this make sense. Doesn't make any sense. Reward the guys that do the thing. Chris Dunn's done the thing. 4th is Houston. There's nobody you can go to there. Dylan's been really great. Amon's a demon, but he's young.
Yeah.
Shingun, right? There's nobody you can go to. 5th is Minnesota. They're not going to give it to Rudy.
Just not going to do it.
It's over.
I just do want to note this because I was looking at this figure and I think it's just worth talking about because there is this idea of Gobert being so overrated, yada, 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 yada. What I did was over at Dunks and Threes, they have what's the difference in how much opponents shoot at various spots when you're on the floor. And if you go by 1,000 minutes, which is a pretty decent, like just not too high standard, and you do rim differential, guess who's number 1? Rudy Gobert at minus 8.1%. They shoot the ball at the rim 8.1 percentage points lower than when he's on the bench.
It's unreal.
Ridiculous.
It's insane.
Wemby, by the way, if you're curious, Wemby on this list is 4th. Isaiah Hartenstein 2nd. You know who should win this award? They should give it to Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein together. Smoosh them together and give it to those two, and we can call it a day.
They'll have barely enough games together.
But sadly, it will not happen. By the way, Zoo 5th on that list. Again, his on the rim percentage. His formula is really good. Brian, you mentioned defensive rating. Here's the thing. If we talk about defensive rating, here's the top 3 with a minimum of 50 games played and 20 minutes game per play. Because the Thunder are number 1, Shea's number 1 at 103.2. Jalen Williams, actually, there's a lot of numbers that you like. I could, if you were like, I need you to write down the case for Jalen Williams. No problem. Like, I could do it. His rim per day, like, he's a really good defender at the rim. Lou Dort is 3rd. Here's what I'll say. The beat writers will probably gravitate towards someone from OKC. And when they do that, some of those beat writers will ask the Thunder about it. And I will spoil that for you because I've already had those conversations. and they will tell you it's Lou Dort. So the best bet right now is Lou Dort. That's the best bet for you to make right now.
Go ahead. I was going to say you can make a position of the 3 Thunder players.
Yeah.
Like you could create that too. Like if you wanted to. Like if you said, I want to bet on somebody on Oklahoma City winning. But then like you're giving up a lot on Dort, like because you could just cherry pick the highest number, but like Dort's highest number is 15-1, which based on like I don't really think it should go to Shea. I don't think it's going to go to Shea.
It's not.
So it's like there's no point in including him.
I kind of think it should. I'll just say that for the record. So
you kind of think it should what?
Okay. Here's the argument.
I didn't think we'd get to the SGA depoy case.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. I know, but I've actually I've done the research.
Yeah.
Here's the trick with it. Okay,
just don't fall for the Celtics 2023 trap where it's like it has to go to a Celtic.
Right.
Just because.
Yeah. Well, I do think we're actually in a similar point here, and that's why I think it's going to go. Like, I actually think Dort might maybe should be the favorite. I think they're that good defensively. I don't know how you look at the gap between them and everybody else and give it to somebody on another team. I just don't. I don't know how you do it.
That's fair.
Shea second in steals. That's a cute metric for you to use. It's just that's an easy one. Hey, the Thunder are so good because they force a lot of turnovers. Guess who leads them in turnovers forced? It's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. The Thunder will tell you that he's not their best defender, and nobody thinks that. Everybody, if you're listing the best defenders in Oklahoma City, you're saying it's Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, probably Casey Wallace. You can make an argument for J-Dub. It's both of the bigs. That's 6 guys.
Yeah.
Before we get to Shea. That's why he's not going to win. Yeah. Because everybody's just going to be like, he's not the best. You can't win DPOY if you're not the best player on best defensive player on your team. And I get that. My counter would be this. We have numbers that tell you how many shots guys have defended. And on Oklahoma City, no player has a lower points per possession average on shots defended than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. 2, no player has defended more shots than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander because no one wants to go at Lou Dort, and no one wants to go at Alex Caruso, and no one wants to go at Casey Wallace. So they try and wear out Shea because he's the MVP candidate and he's the weak point, and he's still doing better than everybody else. So the question here is, this is what it gets to. Do you reward Lou because fewer guys want to challenge him?
Right.
Even though the results are higher because he guards the toughest guys? Or do you reward the player that has done the work? And I think it's an interesting question.
Who do you think is a better corner? Is it Darrelle Revis because no one wants to throw to him, or is it somebody else who gambles and gets a bunch of interceptions? Right. Not that Shea's gambling getting a bunch of interceptions, but he gets a lot of steals and has a high steal percentage. I think that could be subjective. Like, I might think, hey, there's a reason you might not want to try somebody. That's the Rudy Gobert stat in the paint.
Yeah.
Like, people don't want, same thing with Wemby. People look at these people and they turn around and they're like, or they just swing it to somebody else. We're like, nope, I'm not trying it. He's 7'12". I'm passing it to my point guard. Like, we're not doing this. And with Shea, I think, to phrase it this way, more people are trying him, so to speak, because it's like Dort, J-Dub, one of the bigs. It's like, where are you going to go? You know what I mean? So what this tells me ultimately is that Shea is doing a good job of not just surviving, but excelling in these spots. I don't think that necessarily makes him Defensive Player of the Year because of the reps.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like this is the exact type of thing that improves his like MVP case, because you say he's not a negative on both sides of the ball. Like if anything, he's a stronger positive defensively, and he doesn't have to be the best defensive player on the team, but he's also not like a weak point. He's not causing like you a problem schematically because of his defense. He's actually contributing and doing some things on that side of the ball. So it's just like another thing you can throw into the MVP type of pot. It's tough because my concern with picking somebody from Oklahoma City just because the defense is so transcendent is basically and look, like Wemby is an alien. He's in a category by himself, right? The voters just didn't give a shit about the San Antonio not being that good defensively. They just didn't care. They're like, whatever. And my concern is basically, if you look at this and you say, okay, well, Oklahoma City has this transcendent defense, it has to go to somebody from there. I feel like there's a lot of voters that are going to be like, meh, I don't know. I was going to vote for Wemby anyway. Like, I'm going to pick somebody new. And that's kind of what my concern is with the Oklahoma City ticket. I mean, granted, it's reflected that way in the market that Oklahoma City doesn't have a favorite for this award. But at the same time, that's where I'm a little concerned with the voting.
But yeah, Joe, you mentioned earlier though. You mentioned like, will Jared Allen take away from Evan Mobley?
Yeah,
and Matt, I want to ask you: do you think Jared Allen would take away from Evan Mobley? And also, do you think voters would be like, we're going to give it to Jaren Jackson Jr. again? Not that he would already have voter fatigue, just after winning it one time, but
we have a history of guys winning this award multiple times, and it actually does better as long as it's not back to back. So I don't think that's going to hurt him. Jared Allen will not hurt him because we've tried to make the case for Jared Allen for DPOI like 4 different times on this show through the years, and the voters do not know he exists.
It's fair.
He is a ghost. Every year I'm like, oh, hey, the Cavs are top 5 in defense again. Look who's got the best defensive numbers and does all the rebounding and blocking of the shots that you guys love so much. And the voters are like, huh, weird. The air just does that in Cleveland. Odd. It's fucking annoying. The reality is this vote, look, this award, I've talked about this before. This award is, I have to be a little considerate here. I think that they get MVP right most of the time. I think they get six-man right most of the time. You're 60-40. I think they get most improved pretty well. I think they do very well with Rookie of the Year. Like, there's a lot of awards I think the voter group does very well with. DPOY, I am not even kidding. It needs a dedicated panel that all they do is this.
Yes.
And you should get, like, Gary Payton on it, and you should get an analytics wonk, and you should get a council of about 12 people to decide DPOY, and their job is to actually watch the defense and not watch all of the other stuff, because when you're watching a game, you're not going to capture it. I think coaches can do it. I think players can do it because they understand the game well enough. If it's somebody like me, it would have to be like, I have to go back and I have to watch every like today, I did it with Evan Mobley in the Knicks game. I went back and I just watched all of Evan Mobley's defensive minutes and caught all the little things that he does that make him so great.
Yeah.
That's the level of detail that you need to. And the way that it should be done on a metric level is not this stat says this or this stat says this. Everyone wants a silver bullet. You have to triangulate it between individual defense via the tracking data and the team level stuff. You have to triangulate it between all these different factors. Because when people say, well, all the defensive metrics are flawed, you're right, but they will all point in a central direction. If you do it right, you can find the central direction. That's why with Dyson Daniels, it's like, is Dyson Daniels a good defender? Hell yeah! He's awesome! He's incredible! He leads the league in steals! Does Dyson Daniels make his defense better? Oh, no. No. The Hawks are terrible. No.
So bad.
And it's like, they make him better, right? Like, he does make them better defensively. They are a better team when he is on the floor because of the defensive presence that he brings. Is it enough to consider him for DPOY? No, because you should actually, the result of that should be that your defense is actually good. And in reality, by the way, Dyson Daniels, the defense is 6.8 points worse per 100 possessions with him on the floor. That's it. We're done.
He'll get all defense, though.
Yeah, he will. He'll get all defense, and he deserves it.
Yeah.
He's been amazing. He's awesome. Can't wait till Trey's gone so he can be even better. So, all that said, I think that Lou Dort is still a very good candidate. Jaren can win it. I think Jaren's been awesome. One thing I will say, Jaren's contest rate at the rim is better than Evan Mobley's and pretty much anybody else's that's in the running right now.
Yeah.
His deterrence is lower because he plays power forward. And so you don't get the impact of guys are not like, can't drive on him. Jaren's down there because he's not just roaming. Jaren does this thing. What is it? What's the word? Oh yeah. He actually plays fucking defense and doesn't just camp out in the lane and wait to block shots on you. I'm not saying that other guys, like, that's not what Rudy does. There are a lot of guys that are labeled as like great defenders, and that's what they do, is they just sit there and wait for you to drive because you can't shoot. and then they block your shot, and that's not the same thing.
You're thinking of somebody in particular, as you say.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know who it is. I legitimately don't know who it is.
It's a total hypothetical. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. And other things I can't imagine. Can't imagine the New York Knicks getting out of the second round of the playoffs. So the Knicks on Friday face the Cleveland Cavaliers in a game that, like, this is a big weekend for them. Like, this was a chance for them to come out of the All-Star break. Big matchups. Some questions about their defense have been a little bit all over the place. And the Cavs go 142-105 on them. Turn around to Sunday, and they've got the marquee early game versus the Boston Celtics, division rival. They're within range to steal the 2 seed. They win this game, and it gets a little interesting in the division race. They lose 118-105, and it was honestly not that close. It was 27 at one point. They made a wild comeback, and then the Celtics slammed the door on their head. Joe, what you think, buddy?
We don't have Mitchell Robinson back. I don't know what you guys are worried about.
All right. Got it.
No, I mean, look, the concern, honestly, the thing that I was most concerned about is I don't care whether or not Cat wanted to play in this game. Like, when he got hurt with 4 minutes left, down like 20, you don't put him back in the game. Like, that was insane. Like, what are we doing? So, like, that was a concern. I think that overall, it's just the team did well. Number one, they don't really take. They're not taking enough. They're not really shooting enough threes either. Like, it's hard to. It's going to be hard to keep up with some of these teams when you're not taking them and you're not making them. So that's obviously a concern. That's an issue. They didn't have Josh Hart for the game against the Cavs. Probably a minor issue there, given the score. It's just not a great scenario. I do think it starts to beg the question, which I think has been getting pushed before and has been asked before. But you have to wonder, is this like a talent issue, or is it a Tibbs issue? Because Tibbs always seems to get the most out of the team. And this year seems to be like the perfect encapsulation of that, right? Where you push this team, they beat everybody, they win all the games they're supposed to win, whatever. You play against the top 3 teams, the teams that are the title favorites, right? And you cannot get a win. And it's just, they just look outclassed in a lot of these games. Like, there's parts of the game where they can control the game or control a little bit of the scenario, but it just hasn't looked particularly strong, and it doesn't look like the way that they play basically any other team in the league. So like, they'll beat Denver, they'll beat Memphis, like, they'll win some of those games, but against Boston, Cleveland, and Oklahoma City, it's just been like a bloodbath. So I think the question is really are they just being completely out schemed? I don't really think it's a talent thing. It might be the particular it might be the way that the talent that they have needs to be aligned better, or it needs to be coached in a different way, or you need to have a different game plan to maybe mask some of it. But on paper, it shouldn't be a talent issue.
Brian, what are your thoughts?
11-14 against 500 and above teams is the sort of number for me. And as somebody who's been doing a Knicks show all season long on the New York Post YouTube sports channel, we've been talking about all season long, among other things, just their performance against these top tier teams, and circling especially Cleveland and Boston, because there are a lot of Knicks fans who think this is the same Cleveland team from a couple years ago, and I keep saying it's not. Like, this is a different team. Like, they've grown up a little bit. They've been punched in the mouth. They won a playoff series. Jared Allen's developed, but also Evan Mobley is now getting to being closer to the Evan Mobley that we think is going to be eventually his final form. He's still probably years away from that. But I felt like when they got Kenny Atkinson, he would unlock him a little bit, and he's done that. Donovan Mitchell's done what he had to do. Darius Garland didn't play today, and this still sort of was what it was. I think with Cleveland, with Boston, they're just so much better than the Knicks, it feels like, in a playoff context. Like, because I'm looking at the Knicks later on this season, and I'm like, all right, Are they going to be healthy the entire postseason? Is one with Tom Thibodeau. And then the defense is a concern for me. This is the thing that I've been talking about all season long.
Yeah.
It's like their defensive identity. Like, this is a more talented team than they've had. But their defensive identity last year was like, all right, there's a way that you can, despite having less talent, you can drag teams. You can overcome your sort of late game offense when it gets stagnant by just getting a shit ton of offensive rebounds, putting it back up, getting to the free throw line, doing all these different things. And that element of their team is gone. They don't rebound at the same rate that they used to. They're still pretty good at keeping teams off the boards, but at the same time, they're not the same rebounding team. Like, they don't have that identity. They can create late game offense, but the problem is we've seen time and again, they're tired by the fourth quarter because they're playing guys 40 and 42 and 44 minutes. This happened several times throughout the year where they have like a lead or they fight back and there's 6 minutes left. They were fighting back against Boston today and they ended up losing by 13 points. And as Matt mentioned earlier, I thought it was going to be much, much worse because at some points earlier it was. And ultimately, like, the Pacers have a better record against teams that are 500 and above. The Cavs have a way better record. The Celtics have a way better record. And if you sort of go on down to the Western Conference, there are a bunch of teams who have a better record against teams 500 and above. So it's like, I think they can win a first round playoff series, but that's not why you did this. And in the second round, it's increasingly looking like it'll be Boston because Cleveland will probably win, first best record in the Eastern Conference. I have no confidence that they could beat Boston in a playoff series right now. I have none. Even if you tell me like they have an injury, like Drew Holiday's out, Kristaps Porzingis is out, like I still think they'll be fine. Like, Peyton Pritchard's good.
6th man of the year good.
Like Peyton Pritchard's good. Like he's not like here's the thing, Matt. You're shaking your head, but like compared to Cameron Payne,
yeah.
Compared to Deuce McBride, and this is the other thing, it's like their depth worries me in the postseason because it's like, who are you going to turn to? Now, Mitchell Robinson will help alleviate some of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But then can you depend on Mitchell Robinson to do it for 18, 22, 25 minutes?
Probably like 15.
In a healthy way. Like, you still, he hasn't played yet. You still have to ramp him up. That's going to take some time. I don't know.
Somebody, a scout commented to me this weekend. They're like, I can't believe they let go Jericho Sims, which tells you all you need to know about how bad it is for them.
Yeah, Jericho Sims is like, I've like,
right?
Yeah, but to be fair, they gave him all year to like really win the backup job, and they want to see Ariel Hawk-Purdy at this point. So.
Hawk-Purdy's been good. I think he's been good.
Well, he has been, but that Cavs game, I was making notes when I did the rewatch on it, and it was like my notes are like Precious can't play. No, Purdy can't play. Like, it was just very evident from like 7 possessions. I was like, you just can't have these guys on the floor. Like, you cannot. And like, there's guys on Cleveland that I don't think are gonna be like today versus the Grizzlies. I don't think Sam Merrill is gonna hold up. I just don't. There's a lot of guys on Boston that shouldn't hold up, but they do because nobody ever punishes them. Nobody ever punishes them. And it's like, I'm not talking about hunting them in ISO. I'm talking about using the things that they are not going to be good at against them. But anyway, this Knicks team, Joe talked about the kind of difference, and it was just, I do genuinely hate that I was right, Joe, because last year all of the Knicks fans in our Active Black were like, yeah, like they were so excited, and then the season ends like, well, that's fine because we're gonna be back, and I was like, you're gonna trade for a bunch of stars and you're gonna be worse. And they were like, no, that's not what Leon's doing. No. 5 first for Mikal Bridges. Hey, let's go get Karl Anthony Towns. And like, they're better. They are better. But this is when people talk about the talent thing, the talent matters if it fits together. And I was commenting on this today. I was like, well, they built a switch all team. And everybody's like, you think a team with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns is switch all? I was like, no. A team with Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Isaiah Hartenstein is switch all.
Yeah.
That's a switch all lineup. But what you have now is they are now between 2 builds. OG, Hart, Mikal, even Deuce, are all switchable wings, which is what you want versus Boston. And they thought, oh, well, we'll just get we'll get a center that's a stretch 5 to help us keep up offensively, and then it'll work. Well, with that, now it's like an addition. But the problem is that, and I said this is a huge thing, and Cleveland's going to have the same problem with Boston, because Cleveland has 2 small guards.
Yeah.
If you have an undersized guard and a plotting, incapable big at the level, now you're screwed. Because now you can't switch, because it gives them the option of playing a big forward versus your small guard, or your quick guard attacking your big center. If you switch, and if you don't, you have to play drop, and Cat can't play drop.
No, he's terrible in drop. And I guess that's where you would say, well, you need Mitchell Robinson, but then it's like, how do you not have Cat in the game? Like, you have to have, he has to play.
Right, and you can play double big, but then Boston's going to go completely 5 out, and you're going to have Derek White driving to the rim past Cat.
Double big would work against Cleveland. I don't think it wouldn't work against Boston. Right. And you basically just have to say, hopefully Boston gets the 1 seed or something, and you avoid Boston, because that's kind of where the path is.
The other thing that you can do with that set is you can play at the level. So you can have Cat, when Tatum hunts down the matchup that he wants, right? If he's hunting, let's say that Tatum's hunting Cat, you can have Cat play at the level and get the ball out of Tatum's hands. But what the Celtics do that's a real pain in the ass is they will just put you in an off-ball slip situation. And now you have Jalen Brunson chasing Tatum from behind with no rim protection because they're 5 out. Or you have Towns then trying to recover on all these. You just don't have the mechanisms in place to do it. And so I don't think that they have a solution. I don't think they can do it. If fate intervenes and Boston gets upset, hey, this could get interesting, even though I think Cleveland has shown they are decidedly, Cleveland's hey, what if we were the Knicks, but serious? That's the Cavs a lot this season, where it's they have scoring guards, they have a lot of 3-point shooting, they have a lot of versatility. The 2 bigs is not something that the Knicks have, but I think it would be at least live. But unless somebody takes out Boston. So the problem, again, I've been talking about this for weeks, about how I don't necessarily buy Boston, but there's nobody that's going to catch them. There's just nobody. If the Knicks were in the West, Joe, I actually think they can make a run.
Yeah. They match up really well, I think, against most of the teams in the West. It's honestly, the thing that sucks is just they couldn't keep Hartenstein. And it was they wanted to, they just couldn't do it. I think that's really I think the thing that's toughest about the entire situation, because people go, how did you let this guy go? It's it's not our fault. We wanted to keep him. There's nothing we could do. So in a way, you have to wonder too if the standings are particularly interesting now, because they're not going to catch Boston. They're basically stuck at 3. 3 is the ceiling. They can fall, which I don't think is totally out of the question. With their 3 losses ahead of Indiana, 4 ahead of Milwaukee in the 4-5. Who knows? If you fall, is anybody going to be? It's kind of tough, because they talked about this last year, and they purposely they tried to win. They were well, we're going to win, and we'll play who we play. And then Mitchell Robinson's leg gets pulled out from under him in the first round of the playoffs. So, have to see what happens. But it's tough to see them falling, because they beat all the teams they're supposed to. They just can't beat the top teams.
Yeah. Would you like to see him fall, though? Would you like to see him in the 4-5?
I would well, the problem is I don't think you just don't want to sign up for a matchup against Giannis if you don't have to. Whereas right now you're playing Detroit. Sign me up to play Detroit for sure. But, you're not trying to win only in 1 round. You're trying to get out of the first round. You want to get to the conference finals at least.
Oh, that'd be fun though, because every young superstar gets their moment to embarrass the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. So it'll be Cade's turn. So that'll be good. We got Trey's done it, and Hallie's done it. It'll be Cade's turn. To show up and steal the spotlight. Let's do best bets for Monday February 24th in the association. But first, I want to let you know, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably like betting as much as I do. And when it comes to betting, there's two things I'm always trying to do: make it easier and make it more profitable. That's why we've partnered with Edge Boost, the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit, because with Edge Boost Visa debit card, you get up to 0.5% back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. That's free money in your pocket just for doing what you already do. It's a no-brainer. This is not a credit card gimmick. There's no psychotic APR you're dealing with. I opened my own Edge Boost debit card account. It was made even easier to deposit. I used it to deposit some money into DraftKings. No problem. No catch, no hidden fees, no minimum balance requirements, none of that. And if you ever had a casino transaction flagged by your bank because they thought it was suspicious or been given the runaround when trying to fund a sportsbook account online, the Edge Boost debit card is the perfect tool. It starts with a $250,000 daily limit, and you'll never be declined for gambling activity. It's why I was so happy to open an account, and you will be too. Make your betting life easier and stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet to sign up. And if you use promo code BUCKETS, BUCKETS, and deposit $25, you'll receive a $25 deposit match plus Tier 2 status for faster bank deposits and more cash back. That's edgeboost.bet, promo code BUCKETS. All right, let's get to some best bets for Monday in the association. We'll go around the horn. Let's start with Brian Fonseca. What do you like for me? Give me some bets for Monday, Brian Fonseca.
Davion Mitchell over 11.5 points plus assists. And Joe and I are both going with the Nuggets.
Okay, Joe Delara. So you like Nuggets -2. He spoiled it for you. What else do you like?
No, so I like the Nuggets. I think we got -4 now.
Okay.
I like Kelly Oubre over 24.5 points plus rebounds. And I'm also going to be on Jokic over 50.5 PRA. Monster number, but we're getting there.
Bounce back spot for you guys. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense that the Nuggets, after losing to the Lakers in a dispiriting game, bounce back opponent, Eastern Conference team, no real defense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I like Pacers money line. I'll take Pacers money line. I'm also on the Heat team total over. I'm going to be on the Blazers team total over, and I'm taking the Nets -2.5 as well. You can find those bets in the Action Network app. Let's do Davion Mitchell real quick, because Davion Mitchell. Why do you like Davion Mitchell? I like Off Night quite a bit, and I really want things to turn around for him. I hate it when these elite defenders are unplayable offensively. It sucks, and it makes me very mad. Like, I'm just like, no, they're so good. It's going to be such a cool story. Tell me why Davion Mitchell over 11.5 points assists is your play, Brian.
Nikola Jovic fractured his hand. And now there needs to be some more playmaking from others. Nikola Jovic, not that he was always, but he was more and more in their lineups, especially post Jimmy Butler, which I don't think started after the deadline. It may have started in December, but he's been more of a secondary ball handler, which he should be, because he's not somebody who should just be shooting threes in the corner. And with Davion Mitchell now on the roster, I don't know if people have been paying attention, but Eric Spoelstra is playing the shit out of him. He's playing like 35, 34 minutes in all these different games. He is firmly in the lineup right now, which is not to be unexpected if you know guys that Eric Spoelstra sort of gravitates to, which is basically defense first. He's a starter right now, and it looks like that's something that's going to continue. Terry Rozier is not really playing much anymore at this point. It's getting phased out a little bit, which people who root for that team have been calling for all year. But Davion Mitchell's also been shooting the ball well, and I think now they're going to need a little bit more from him offensively. This is also against the Atlanta Hawks, so that is very, very helpful. Dyson Daniels is on the other side. I don't think he's going to need to be guarding Davion Mitchell for much of this game. I think his responsibilities will be elsewhere, starting with Tyler Hero in particular. So I think with Davion Mitchell, he's gotten this a couple times already, but without Nikola Jovic, they'll be looking for other guys to sort of play make and things of that nature. And with Jaime Jaquez sort of getting phased out and Haywood Highsmith getting phased out and Davion Mitchell firmly getting 34, 33 minutes on a regular basis, he'll have his opportunities, and I think he'll make the most of them in this game.
Okay, I like the play. I like the play on Jovic in particular. I think this is a good setup here for this one. Joe, do you have any thoughts on Davion Mitchell?
No, I like it. I think it's a good way to capture some of the like secondary playmaking that they definitely need, especially after that injury.
Okay. I love the Heat team total here versus the Hawks. So this is a trend that I found, and we played it over the weekend. And I didn't really have a chance to do it with the Pistons because of the number, but to me, it's a really solid trend this season. So the Hawks this season have played 26 home games. The opponent team total is over in 18 of the 26. So we're 18 and 8 on opponent team total overs in Atlanta. So what you're looking for here, I've started doing this adjustment because one of the things that I did as a backstop on my model was like, all right, what is the rate of overs for the team in the home and away spot? And if they both line up as that's an over spot and I projected over, okay, I'm going to play the combined over. But a lot of the time you're going to get one team that's under 500 and one team that's under 500 over under, right? And so with the Heat and the Hawks here, I do project this all the way up at a very high number of 234 and a half. But there's not really like a play here for the combined team total over, in part because the Heat defense on the road has actually been pretty good. And so I worry about the Hawks in that spot. But guess what? The Hawks at home are a 66% over team, in part because of, like I said, they allow their opponent to go over the team total every single time. And from that perspective, the Hawks on the second night of a back-to-back after a tough loss to the Pistons, letdown spot, Heat coming in probably a little pissed off about that loss to the Bucks. It's a nasty kind of spot here, but I don't want the Heat on the side. I don't want to mess with the combined total. I'm just targeting this trend, and I'm going to go over on, you can get a 213.5 in the market on the Heat, or a 113.5, not 213, 113.5 team total over on the Miami Heat. Any objections?
I like it.
Okay. All right. I knew I wouldn't get objections from Brian Fonseca, Heat sympathizer. Let's go. All right, let's do this Pacers game. So the Lakers stomped the Nuggets on Saturday night, and that was a game where this happens in the regular season from time to time, where one team goes into the game and thinks that it's a normal regular season game. The Knicks had this happen to them actually twice.
Yeah.
Where they're like, it's like a normal regular season game. Like, hey, buddies, hey, good to see you. Hey, like we're just going to play a little basketball. Base coverages, we'll see who wins. And then the other team is like, we're going to rip your fucking heart out because this game matters to us.
Yeah.
And the Lakers, JJ Redick said, I could hardly sleep for 3 days after the Blazers game, trying to get ready for this. I'm not saying they threw the kitchen sink at the Nuggets. They threw like half the kitchen sink. You know, the section where you put the dishes and not the one where you wash the vegetables? They put the dishes side, and that's what they threw at them. They used a blowtorch, and they peeled that out, and they threw that at Denver. And Denver was like, whoa, what the fuck? And what was interesting to me was there are counters. Like, they've seen this before. Like, Jokic, after the game, was like, yeah, they used a lot of this in the playoff series last year. There are counters. Denver did not go to them. Just chose not to go to them. Now, I'm not saying that they did that. This was like they let them have it. I'm not saying that this is not a worse matchup than it used to be for Denver, because it is. It's a much better matchup for the Lakers than it used to be. But I think that's notable. Lakers will be pretty pissed off, or Nuggets will be pretty pissed off. They do not like. They had a 9-game winning streak snapped. They do not like it when these things extend. They're on the road here. Joe, you feel pretty confident that the Nuggets are going to take care of business versus Indiana on the road as a 4.5-4-point favorite in the market. What do you like about the spot for Denver?
Yeah, I mean, Indiana is 2-6 when they're against the spread when they don't have any rest. So I like that spot there. I also like the little bit of a bounce back spot for Denver. I think that Jokic had some comments about how basically they had that 9-game winning streak, and it was just against like relatively bad teams, essentially. And I think that was an interesting comment to make. And I think that, like, you know, you lose this game to Los Angeles, it's a good opportunity to kind of bounce back and come back against them. I like Jokic in this game, and I also like Denver as a result of that. Indiana's been atrocious in at defending the paint. And they allow one of the highest amount of points in the paint in the NBA this entire season. They've just gotten crushed by centers. So Jokic has had success against them and Miles Turner over the past couple of seasons, regardless. It's the first matchup this year, and their interior defense is even worse, honestly. And then now we get a spot where they're motivated. I think they want they always want to win these games, but I think it sets up well for them. The other thing is that Indiana's strong. One of really their strongest suits is they do a good job of limiting transition. And while Denver can be good in transition between like Christian Brown, Russell Westbrook, and like getting those outlet passes, I think that if it does devolve into a half court game, that's just plays into what Jokic does best as well, in terms of not only scoring the basketball, but being able to assist. And if they do throw doubles at him, then he can dish a little bit more. Indiana hasn't given up a huge assist game to like a big this year, but they also haven't played Jokic. So I think that this is just a great spot for him and Denver to really kind of coalesce, bounce back off that Lakers spot, and take advantage of an Indiana team who's on the second end of a back-to-back. And they just beat the Clippers. So they're coming off a win. And I think that this could be a little bit of a letdown spot for them, while it's a lock-in spot for the Denver Nuggets.
It's pretty good, Cap. I have some quibbles, but we'll get to it in a second. Brian, what are your thoughts?
I don't have a ton to add, but I do like Denver here because with Indiana, Joe mentioned 2-6 without rest, also 14-17 against the spread after a win, which is on the bottom half of the NBA scale. Now, Denver's not great with the rest advantage, like 3-5 ATS this year. I would want them to be a little bit better also as road favorites, which they're not, a layup on, but I do like this spot for them coming off the Lakers loss in particular. I don't think this is one that's going to sit well with them, and also was a little bit surprised at how easily it felt like the Pacers were able to deal with, I believe it was the Clippers tonight, 129-111, and I think this is, I wouldn't say a prime letdown spot, but I'd be pretty stunned if Denver sort of lets this one get away from them too, especially considering, and Joe's talked about this and we'll talk about it again, but like the Jokic piece of it especially, and how Indiana tends to get hurt by opposing centers, especially ones who are dynamic, and this is the most dynamic perhaps. So I think I like the matchup for Denver. I like the spot for Denver. And emotionally, if you're looking at just outside of the numbers and all the bullshit that we have to look at on a day-to-day basis, like this feels like it should be a Denver spot. So I'm going to stay true to that.
Emotional damage. So the Nuggets are 57% to the over on the road. The Pacers are 64% to the over at home. My model is a little bit handcuffed here because this number is 246 and my numbers are just never going to be able to catch up at here. What's interesting is I project the Nuggets to go under their team total, the Pacers to go over. And I make this a pick'em. Okay. Now, I would usually just be like, all right, sure, but like I'm not one of the things I do a lot of the research is to take the model and then be like, what are the reasons not to bet this? But unfortunately, I can't really find any here. Denver's not a good road team. They're 46% against the spread on the road. Brian, do you have the number for them as a favorite?
I'm gonna get it right now. Just let me fill
the Pacers are 50%. Or the Pacers are 50% against the spread. They're about even at home. It's a back-to-back spot, which isn't ideal because the Pacers are not very good on the second night of a back-to-back. They're 2-6 against the spread on the second night of a back-to-back this season, so that's not great. Don't feel awesome about that. But Denver just has not, to me, proven that they can actually, that this is a spot they're going to take care of. Like, they are not a good enough team. I'll say this. They are not a good enough team to go on the road and beat a playoff team right now.
8-12 as a road favorite.
Yeah. Indiana is only 3-4 as a home dog, though. So
neither team has like a great resume in this.
Right. It's not a great spot. Joe talked about the points in the paint problem. I think that's it's not a bigger problem for Denver, but it is just as much of a problem for Denver. So here's the question, okay? Before I lock this in,
sure.
Before I bet the Pacers. By the way, I will sprinkle on overtime on this game because that's how I roll.
Of course.
So in opponent points in the paint, the Nuggets have the 5th worst mark in the NBA per 100 possessions.
Yeah.
The Pacers are 8th. In points in the paint, the Nuggets are 1st, and the Pacers are 8th. I think this one might be I just disregard the model and maybe just play the over, but it's 246. So I think I might want to just play the Pacers team total over, and that way Denver can put up 150 and beat them by 7, and it's fine. That to me might be the compromise play the more that I think about it, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, both teams play pretty fast, too. I mean, you have the 5th fastest and 6th fastest paces in the league between these two teams. So I think if you're looking at Indiana and you're saying, well, Denver's not going to really be able to lock down too much anyway defensively, let's just go for this team total over. I don't think, and you're basically saying that you don't think they should be a dog here anyway. So you're kind of getting a couple not free, but you're getting a couple points there because they're underdogs on that team total for Indiana.
They're both like 14 and 14 on the home away team total spreads. So fantastic. I don't have an angle there. I'm gonna do that though. I think
game is just write out the overtime ticket.
I'm gonna do the overtime ticket. I'm gonna sprinkle on a Pacers alt line, and I'm gonna take the Pacers team total over.
What's the alt line gonna be?
Like -2.5. It's just based off of this ongoing thing where I'm like, teams that cover win outright, and they win by about 4.5 points on average. So I should be able to play this alt line and profit. And every time I do it, I'm wrong. So
just as a note, injury wise, Denver looks okay. Jamal Murray is probable. Yeah, Aaron Gordon is probable. TJ McConnell injured his ankle, sprained his ankle tonight. So TBD on him. But I don't know if that's going to swing the spread.
Should be a fun one. Real quick on the Blazers team total over. I've got like similar splits on this one as I do with the game involving Atlanta. 27 home games for the Jazz this season. It's 15 and 12 for opponents to the over on their team total. Jazz have been okay relative to their standard on offense on the road. The Jazz are missing a lot of their guys, so I don't want to play the combined team or combined total here, but I do think there's a good chance that the Blazers put up a sizable figure here. I put this at 121, and it's going to be about 116.5 in the market. So I'm happy to take the Blazers team total over as well. Blazers continue to play a little bit too well. And then the Nets, I'm going to take versus the Washington Wizards because, well, it's the Wizards. And the Wizards on the second night of a back-to-back this season. Let's take a look at that one. 0-5 and 1. That's a home. 0-5 and 1-4 against the spread. For total on the season, they are 2-7 against the spread, 0-9 straight up.
Beautiful.
On the second night of a back-to-back.
Perfect.
I'll take the Nets, who continue to have, like, I can't believe I lost on the Nets team total or win total under. What a Jordy Fernandez.
Yes.
Killing him. No flag for them.
Not at all.
Bad tank commander. All right, it's going to do it. Brian Fonseca is on Twitter. At Brian Fonseca. He's on YouTube at Brian Fonseca NY. You can catch him on the New York Post Knicks show. He's also does all sorts of coverage of the boxing and fighting scene. You can catch Joe Delera on the Cash That podcast with special guests all the time and in the Action Network app at Joe Delera. Thanks for joining us. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, Bridie Rubino, Gifford Gould, getting us up at youtube.com/The Action Network. We'll be back tomorrow night with more best bets for Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Till next time, let's get buckets.